There are places in this world where the stones remember more than we do, where darkness hides not only the past, but a truth so strange it feels almost impossible. Tonight, we'll explore 12 of history's greatest unsolved mysteries, from lost cities beneath the sea to artifacts that whisper of forgotten civilizations. And with each one, you'll walk away with more than just questions. You'll have the evidence, the science, and the most convincing conclusions we have today. So, shall we begin? It began in 1902, in the Maltese town of Paola. Construction workers digging the foundations for new housing broke through into a hollow space beneath the street. Peering inside by candlelight, they saw carved stone walls disappearing into the darkness. What they had found was no ordinary cave. It was a window into a world more than 5,000 years old. The site would become known as the Halsaflini Hypogeum, the largest underground prehistoric structure in the world. 3 levels of chambers carved directly into solid limestone, extending over 500 square meters. Archaeologists soon realized this was a necropolis, a city of the dead, where more than 7,000 individuals were once laid to rest. And yet, the hypogeum held far more than bones. The walls of certain rooms were painted in spirals, honeycomb patterns, and red ochre designs, pigments that have somehow survived the damp underground air for millennia. One chamber, called the Oracle Room, was carefully shaped to create an acoustic effect. When a deep male voice speaks inside, the sound resonates at exactly 110 Hz, a frequency known to influence brain activity. Visitors often describe feeling lightheaded, even altered, when hearing it. Was this an ancient ritual space designed to shift the human mind? Researchers have mapped the hypogeum using laser scanning, revealing precision in its layout far beyond what was thought possible for its time. The spiral art has been tested. The red pigment contains hematite, an iron oxide that resists fading, suggesting its creators understood advanced pigment preservation techniques. Acoustic engineers have confirmed that the Oracle Room's resonance is no accident. It matches natural frequencies found in certain ancient temples worldwide. And then there are the elongated skulls found here. Originally stored in the National Museum of Malta, some had proportions unlike typical human skulls. Modern analysis suggests these elongated skulls were likely the result of deliberate cranial shaping, a cultural practice found in parts of South America, Africa, and even ancient Europe. The process involves binding the head of an infant during the earliest months of life, gradually altering the shape of the skull as it grows. The reasons for this practice vary across cultures. In some cases, it was seen as a mark of beauty, in others as a sign of nobility or a way to imitate the appearance of revered ancestors. But in the hypogeum, a mystery lingers. A few experts claim the proportions of certain skulls are simply too extreme to be explained by known techniques, hinting at something stranger. Were these individuals set apart by status, ritual, or perhaps by origin? The purpose of the hypogeum itself remains just as elusive. Some scholars believe it was purely a burial site, a silent city of the dead carved deep into the limestone. Others envision it as a temple, a place where sound, light, and ritual were carefully engineered to alter human perception and bridge the gap between the living and the spiritual. Imagine standing in the Oracle Room, your voice resonating through the stone at exactly 110 Hz. The low vibration moving through your bones and into your mind, accompanied by the flicker of torchlight on painted spirals. Such conditions could easily induce trance-like states, visions, or feelings of presence. Then there are the fringe theories, ideas that push far beyond conventional archaeology. Some see the hypogeum as a kind of ancient portal, a liminal space where altered states of consciousness allowed contact with other realms, whether spiritual, metaphysical, or terrestrial. Supporters of this view point to similar acoustic phenomena found in ancient sites from Egypt to Peru, suggesting a shared knowledge that spanned continents and millennia. Could the hypogeum have been part of a forgotten global tradition, its builders aware of techniques now lost to time? Even if such theories remain unproven, one fact is clear. The design of the hypogeum was anything but random. Its chambers vary in shape and size, some cramped and suffocating, others vast and cathedral-like. The placement of artwork, the careful shaping of the Oracle Room, and the preservation of pigments all point to a deliberate and sophisticated cultural plan. Whoever built it possessed not just the physical skill to carve such a structure, but the intellectual and spiritual vision to imbue it with meaning. Today, the most widely accepted conclusion is that the hypogeum served as both a necropolis and a ceremonial space, possibly for ancestor worship. In this interpretation, the dead were not merely laid to rest, but remained in active presence, their spirits honored and perhaps consulted in times of need. Such beliefs are far from unique. Across the world, from the tombs of the pharaohs to the burial mounds of Celtic Europe, we find echoes of the same idea, that death is not an end, but a transformation. And so, the hypogeum stands as a testament to a culture with deep spiritual traditions and technical skill far ahead of its time. We may never fully grasp the beliefs that inspired its creation, but we can feel them. They live in the cool touch of the stone walls, in the red spirals still clinging to the limestone, in the strange vibration that hums through the oracle room. These are not the works of a people content with the ordinary. They are the fingerprints of minds reaching for something beyond. Beneath the streets of Malta, this masterpiece still waits in the shadows, untouched by sunlight for thousands of years, holding secrets that may never be spoken aloud. And perhaps, that is exactly how its builders intended it. From an underground labyrinth carved in stone, we now turn to a desert thousands of miles away, where small clay figures tell a story of reptilian beings that may have walked the earth long before history began. In the barren heat of southern Mesopotamia, where the shifting sands hide layer upon layer of forgotten civilizations, a team of archaeologists brushed the dust away from something utterly unexpected. They were excavating the ancient site of Tel al-Ubaid, a settlement belonging to one of the earliest cultures in the region. Amid broken pots, stone tools, and fragments of long-decayed dwellings, they uncovered small clay figurines unlike anything they had ever seen before. At first, their forms seemed human, bodies, limbs, even clothing, but their faces were something else entirely. Almond-shaped eyes, elongated skulls, narrow snouts, they looked more reptile than man. And yet, every detail suggested this was no accident. These figures were made with intention. The Al-Ubaid culture thrived between roughly 5,500 and 4,000 BCE, long before the rise of the famous Sumerians. They were among the first to establish large, permanent settlements in Mesopotamia, with rectangular mud brick houses, central temples, and intricate irrigation systems. Their society was agricultural at its core, farming barley and wheat, keeping cattle, and fishing in the marshes of the Tigris-Euphrates Delta. They traded extensively, as seen in the spread of their distinctive painted pottery across the region. The figurines were found not just at Tel al-Ubaid, but also at Eridu and Ur, two of the world's oldest cities. This widespread presence suggests the imagery was not a local oddity, but a shared cultural element known throughout Ubaid lands. The figurines vary in height from a few inches to over a foot tall. Despite their small size, the craftsmanship is remarkable. Smooth surfaces, proportioned limbs, and a keen attention to facial features. Some are male, others female. One holds a staff, another cradles a child. Many have intricately patterned robes or headpieces, and a few appear to wear helmets, as though dressed for ceremony. The most striking, however, are those holding reptilian infants, their tiny heads echoing the same elongated skulls and narrow faces as the adults. These were not crude, abstract symbols. They were deliberate, specific, and consistent. The clay was locally sourced and fired in kilns, showing that the figurines were crafted within the community itself, rather than imported. Surface smoothing and detail work suggest they were meant to be seen up close, perhaps held during rituals or displayed in sacred spaces. The figurines have been dated through stratigraphy, correlating the layers in which they were found with other known artifacts of the Ubaid period. Some layers have been cross-referenced with radiocarbon dating from nearby organic material, confirming their age. Microscopic analysis of the clay reveals a consistent composition, pointing to specific local clay beds as the source. Comparative studies show no equivalent reptilian imagery in neighboring cultures of the same era, neither in the Arabian Peninsula, the Iranian Plateau, nor in early Anatolia. Without a written language from the Ubaid, researchers must rely on context to interpret the figurines. Some have drawn parallels to later Mesopotamian deities, such as Ningishida, a god sometimes associated with serpents. But these connections are speculative. The absence of similar figures in post-Ubaid Sumerian culture suggests that if the imagery had a religious meaning, it was either abandoned or transformed beyond recognition. Mainstream archaeological theory is that the figurines represent gods, spirits, or mythological beings important to the Ubaid people. The reptilian features could symbolize qualities admired or feared, wisdom, transformation, or protection. In the same way other cultures merged human and animal traits in their religious iconography. Serpents, in particular, have been revered in cultures across the world. From the feathered serpent gods of Mesoamerica to the Naga spirits of India, this universal serpent symbolism could hint that the Ubaid figurines are part of a much older, shared human mythos. More fringe theories argue for a literal interpretation, that the Ubaid people were recording encounters with an unknown, possibly non-human race. Some suggest these were survivors of a lost, advanced civilization. Others reach into the realm of ancient astronaut theory. While these ideas have no direct evidence, their persistence speaks to how deeply unsettling and unusual the figurines are, even after decades of study. Today, the prevailing academic consensus is that the Ubaid lizard men were symbolic, likely representing deities or supernatural beings within the Ubaid belief system. Their consistent depiction across sites suggests they were part of a shared religious narrative, one that did not survive into later cultures. While no evidence exists to confirm they were based on real creatures, they remain one of the earliest known examples of complex anthropomorphic art in the ancient Near East. They remind us that the human imagination, even in prehistory, could stretch far beyond the ordinary, blending the familiar and the fantastical into forms that still puzzle us thousands of years later. From the silent figurines of a vanished desert people, we turn now to a discovery etched not in clay, but in metal. A copper scroll whose words lead to one of the greatest hidden treasures ever recorded. It was 1952 in the arid hills of Qumran, along the northwest shore of the Dead Sea. Archaeologists were combing through a series of caves already famous for yielding the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient manuscripts that had transformed our understanding of biblical history. But in one dusty corner of Cave 3, they discovered something unlike any other scroll. It wasn't made of parchment or papyrus. It was made of pure copper. And what was etched onto its surface was not a religious text, not a psalm or prophecy, but a list. A list of places where, according to its lines, staggering amounts of gold and silver had been hidden. The copper scroll immediately stood apart from the other Dead Sea Scrolls. Instead of delicate writing materials, its creators had hammered thin sheets of copper, inscribed them with letters, and then rolled them tightly. By the time it was found, the metal had oxidized and become brittle. It was so fragile that any attempt to unroll it risked shattering it into fragments. Ultimately, researchers decided to cut it into segments to preserve the text. When the pieces were laid out, the mystery deepened. The scroll, written in a variant of Hebrew, described 64 separate locations. Each entry gave directions and details of hidden caches, sometimes listing precise measurements of gold and silver ingots, vessels, and other treasures. One entry described a deposit of 900 talents of gold, a weight that, in modern terms, would equal several tons. Another mentioned silver bars stacked in jars. If taken at face value, the total described treasure would be worth billions of dollars today. The dating of the copper scroll places it around the 1st or 2nd century CE, a period marked by political turmoil, Roman occupation, and the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem in 70 CE. Scholars have long debated who might have created such a record. Some suggest it was compiled by members of the Essenes, the religious sect often associated with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Others believe it could have been authored by temple priests, desperate to safeguard sacred treasures from the advancing Roman legions. There's even a theory that it reflects a hidden storehouse of wealth from the First Temple period, passed down in secret for centuries. The locations described are cryptic. They reference landmarks that may no longer exist, such as in the gutter in the bottom of the tank, under the stairs, or in the Valley of Achor, under the steps going east. Some refer to measurements in cubits or stadia, requiring careful interpretation. To make matters more complex, there's no clear map, no master key, only words carved into copper almost 2,000 years ago. In the decades since its discovery, numerous expeditions have attempted to locate the treasures. Teams have combed through the Judean desert, the area around Qumran, and even sites near Jerusalem. But so far, nothing described in the copper scroll has been definitively found. Some believe the treasure was recovered long ago, perhaps even in antiquity, and that the scroll remains as nothing more than a tantalizing inventory of riches already lost. Others argue that the caches still exist, buried in places no one has yet connected to the scroll's cryptic clues. Scientific study of the copper scroll itself has revealed as much about its makers as it has about the treasure. Metallurgical analysis shows it was made of a nearly pure copper alloy, with trace amounts of tin. The text was incised with a sharp tool, suggesting the scribe had experience working with metal rather than parchment. The unusual choice of copper may have been intentional, a way to create a permanent, durable record of the treasure locations, one that could survive for centuries in the harsh desert environment. Theories abound. Was the treasure part of the temple treasury hidden before the Roman siege? Could it have been war booty from earlier conflicts, hidden for safekeeping? Might it even have been a ceremonial list, symbolic rather than literal, a spiritual inventory rather than a physical one? The lack of any archaeological evidence from the listed locations leaves room for all possibilities. Mainstream scholars lean toward the idea that the copper scroll does describe real treasures, likely the wealth of the temple, but that the caches were removed or lost centuries ago. The more skeptical argue that, without a single confirmed find, it remains an unsolved riddle, its tantalizing descriptions destined to remain unfulfilled. And then there are those who see in the scroll a kind of treasure map still waiting for the right explorer, the one who can connect its ancient directions to the modern landscape. The outcome, after 70 years of searching, is this: no gold, no silver, no precious artifacts have been confirmed from the list. Yet the copper scroll continues to inspire treasure hunters, historians, and archaeologists alike. Its very existence, an ancient document carved into copper to record a hoard of unimaginable wealth, speaks to the human impulse to preserve, to protect, and perhaps to dream of a future when the hidden can be found. From the cryptic etchings of a treasure that may never be recovered, our journey now takes us to another mystery buried in stone. A subterranean city where thousands once lived, hidden away from the world above. A list of treasures worth millions, hidden for over 2,000 years. And that's just one mystery we've unlocked tonight. There are even stranger secrets waiting just ahead. So make sure you subscribe now, because you do not want to miss what's coming next. In 1963, a man in the Nevşehir province of central Turkey was renovating his home when he knocked down a wall in his basement. Behind it, he expected to find more storage space, but instead, he discovered a dark passageway carved into the volcanic rock. When he followed it, the tunnel opened into a room, and another, and another. Soon, it became clear this was no ordinary basement. He had stumbled into the entrance of a vast, ancient underground city. This was Derinkuyu, a subterranean labyrinth large enough to hide an entire population. Derinkuyu lies in Cappadocia, a region famous for its soft volcanic rock and surreal, otherworldly landscapes. Over centuries, wind and water shaped the rock into towering fairy chimneys and deep valleys, and humans discovered they could carve directly into it. The underground city wasn't just a few chambers. Archaeologists have found at least 18 levels, stretching more than 280 feet deep, though only about 8 levels are open to the public today. It's estimated to have sheltered up to 20,000 people, along with their livestock, food supplies, and even churches and schools. Inside, Derinkuyu is a marvel of ancient engineering. There are ventilation shafts more than 50 meters deep, bringing fresh air to the lowest levels. Narrow corridors connect large communal halls, kitchens, wine presses, and storage rooms. Massive circular stone doors, each weighing hundreds of kilograms, could be rolled across passageways to seal off sections in case of attack. There are wells for fresh water, and cleverly designed chimneys that could disperse smoke without betraying the city's presence to enemies above. The complexity of the layout suggests it wasn't built all at once. Instead, it was likely expanded in phases over many generations, each level carved deeper as the need for refuge grew. The big question, why build such a massive city underground? Historians believe Derinkuyu was primarily a refuge during times of invasion. Cappadocia sat on a crossroads of empires. Hittites, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, and later Seljuks and Ottomans all passed through this land. For the locals, an underground city offered protection from raids and prolonged sieges. Inside, residents could survive for months with stored food and livestock, safe from enemies and harsh weather. Some believe its origins date back to the Phrygians around the 8th century BCE, with later expansions during Byzantine times, especially during Arab-Byzantine wars. Over centuries, it was used, abandoned, and rediscovered multiple times. Archaeologists have studied the tool marks on Derinkuyu's walls, noting they were made with simple hand tools, proof that this massive complex was created without advanced machinery. The soft volcanic tuff made carving easier, but the sheer scale required meticulous planning to prevent collapses. Ventilation shafts were carved first to maintain airflow during construction, and supporting pillars were left intact to hold up ceilings. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed even more tunnels connecting Derinkuyu to other underground cities nearby, suggesting a vast network beneath Cappadocia. This means Derinkuyu wasn't an isolated refuge, it was part of a larger defensive strategy. While historians have practical explanations for Derinkuyu, local legends offer stranger ones. Some say it was built to protect people from a great catastrophe, possibly even something that came from the sky. Others whisper of an ancient race that lived underground long before humans, and that Derinkuyu's builders simply expanded what was already there. More speculative theories link it to lost civilizations or even extraterrestrial visitors, pointing to the precision of the layout as too advanced for its supposed age. The most accepted view is that Derinkuyu was an evolving fortress refuge, built and expanded over centuries to shield communities from the constant threat of invasion. Its engineering shows that ancient societies could achieve remarkable feats with simple tools, patience, and necessity. Today, much of Derinkuyu remains unexplored, its deeper levels closed to the public for safety reasons. We may never know the full extent of what lies beneath, or the secrets still locked behind its sealed doors. From the stone corridors of an underground refuge, we rise again to the open air. But this time, the danger came not from invaders, but from the depths of the earth itself, in a disaster so powerful it turned day into night. In the heart of the Aegean Sea lies the island of Santorini, a crescent of rugged cliffs wrapped around a deep blue bay. It's a place of beauty today, but around 3,600 years ago, it was the stage for one of the most catastrophic volcanic eruptions in human history. Back then, the island wasn't a broken ring of land, it was whole, dominated by a towering volcanic peak. This was ancient Thera, and when it erupted, it didn't just change the island's shape, it may have reshaped the course of entire civilizations. The eruption of Thera is estimated to have occurred in the mid-2nd millennium BCE, during the height of the Minoan civilization on nearby Crete. The Minoans were master sailors and traders, their influence stretching across the Aegean and into the eastern Mediterranean. Thera itself hosted a thriving settlement at Akrotiri, a bustling port town filled with multi-story buildings, paved streets, and vivid frescoes. But then, without warning, the earth began to tremble. A series of earthquakes shook the island, forcing many to flee. It's likely these tremors were the first warning signs of the colossal eruption to come. When Thera finally erupted, it was on a scale so massive that it ranks among the most powerful volcanic events in recorded history. Geologists estimate the blast was many times more powerful than Krakatoa's eruption in 1883. The explosion obliterated the central peak, sending ash and pumice high into the stratosphere. The collapse of the volcano's magma chamber caused much of the island to sink, forming the deep caldera we see today. The immediate effects on Thera were apocalyptic. A pyroclastic surge, a cloud of superheated gas, ash, and rock, raced across the island, incinerating everything in its path. Akrotiri was buried under meters of volcanic debris, preserved much like Pompeii would be centuries later, but the disaster didn't stop there. The eruption triggered massive tsunamis that raced across the Mediterranean. On Crete, waves may have reached heights of 30 meters, smashing into coastal settlements, ships, and ports. The Minoans, heavily reliant on maritime trade, suffered devastating losses. Their fleets destroyed, their harbors ruined, their economy crippled. The eruption may have been the first domino in the decline of their once great civilization. The atmospheric effects were just as profound. Ash from Thera has been found in ice cores as far away as Greenland, evidence of a volcanic winter that may have lasted for years. Crops failed, weather patterns shifted, and famine likely followed in regions far from the Aegean. Some historians even link the eruption to myths and legends, such as the plagues of Egypt or the story of Atlantis. The sudden destruction of a flourishing island city, swallowed by the sea, sounds eerily similar to Plato's tale of a lost civilization. The science behind the eruption paints a vivid picture of the sequence of events. First came the earthquakes, which may have driven many inhabitants to abandon Akrotiri temporarily, a stroke of luck that explains the lack of human remains in the ruins. Then came an initial explosion, ejecting pumice and ash, followed by a catastrophic collapse of the magma chamber. This collapse triggered the largest blasts, sending shockwaves through the region and creating the caldera. Finally, as seawater rushed into the exposed magma chamber, the contact with superheated rock caused secondary explosions and massive steam blasts, amplifying the destruction. Archaeologists studying Akrotiri have uncovered remarkable artifacts, pottery, furniture, and wall paintings, all preserved in volcanic ash. The frescoes depict ships, festivals, landscapes, and animals, offering a rare glimpse into the vibrant life of the Bronze Age Aegean world. These discoveries suggest the people of Akrotiri were prosperous, well-connected, and skilled in art and architecture. Despite its destruction, Thera's eruption also preserved history. Much like Pompeii, Akrotiri stands frozen in time, allowing researchers to reconstruct not just the events of the disaster, but the culture that thrived before it. Still, mysteries remain. We don't know precisely how far the Minoan decline was caused by the eruption versus other factors like invasion or internal strife. Today, the island of Santorini is a popular tourist destination, its caldera a reminder of nature's power to create beauty from devastation. But beneath the picturesque whitewashed villages and blue-domed churches lies the scar of an event so violent it reshaped coastlines, altered climates, and echoed in human memory for millennia. The story of Thera is more than just a tale of destruction. It's a reminder that civilizations, no matter how advanced, are never beyond the reach of the Earth's raw forces. From the ash-choked skies of the Aegean, our journey now takes us to a very different kind of mystery, one written not in stone or metal, but in the stars themselves. In 1900, a group of Greek sponge divers set sail for the island of Antikythera, a small rocky outcrop between Crete and mainland Greece. While searching for sponges in the deep, they stumbled upon something far more remarkable, a Roman-era shipwreck lying 150 feet below the surface. Amid statues, pottery, and jewelry, they found a corroded lump of bronze and wood, barely recognizable. At first, it looked like nothing more than scrap, but hidden inside that corroded shell was a device that would change our understanding of ancient technology forever. It would later be called the Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old machine so advanced that nothing comparable would appear again for more than 1,000 years. Its discovery forced historians to reimagine the scientific capabilities of the ancient world. The mechanism was dated to around the 2nd century BCE, likely created during the Hellenistic period, a time when Greek science and engineering were flourishing. It's believed the ship carrying it was traveling from the eastern Mediterranean to Rome, laden with treasures and artifacts, possibly loot, possibly gifts for wealthy patrons. The device itself, however, stood apart. Inside that corroded mass were dozens of interlocking bronze gears, precisely cut, with teeth so fine they required meticulous craftsmanship. For decades after its discovery, the mechanism baffled researchers. It wasn't until the 1970s, with the use of X-ray imaging, that the true nature of the device began to emerge. It was, essentially, an analog computer, designed to predict astronomical positions, eclipses, and perhaps even the timing of ancient sporting events, like the Olympics. The front face featured a large circular dial, likely representing the zodiac and calendar. A set of pointers could indicate the positions of the sun and moon for any given date, while smaller dials on the back tracked lunar cycles and the timing of eclipses. Incredibly, the mechanism even accounted for the irregular orbit of the moon, a level of astronomical precision that seemed almost impossible for its time. What makes the Antikythera mechanism so extraordinary is not just its function, but the sheer sophistication of its engineering. The gear ratios reveal a deep understanding of mathematics and celestial motion. The teeth were cut with such accuracy that modern watchmakers have marveled at their quality. And yet, no other example of such a machine from the ancient world has ever been found. This raises the question: who built it? Some scholars attribute it to the school of Hipparchus, the great Greek astronomer of the 2nd century BCE. Others believe it was influenced by Archimedes, who was known to have designed complex mechanical devices, though his work was thought to be lost after the Roman conquest. If either connection is true, it suggests that there was a tradition of intricate gear-based technology in the ancient Greek world, one that vanished without a trace after the mechanism's creation. Theories about its origin and disappearance vary. Perhaps it was a closely guarded invention, built only for elite patrons or specific navigators. Maybe the skills to produce it were held by just a handful of craftsmen, and when they died, the knowledge died with them. Some even speculate that the device we found was not unique at all, but merely the lone survivor of a broader but now lost tradition of ancient engineering. From a scientific standpoint, the Antikythera mechanism is a masterpiece of applied geometry and astronomy. Its gear system could model the motion of heavenly bodies decades in advance, allowing ancient scholars or sailors to predict celestial events with astonishing accuracy. For navigation, religious festivals, or agricultural planning, such a tool would have been invaluable. The wreck itself has added to the intrigue. Recovered artifacts suggest the ship may have been transporting goods from Rhodes, an island that was home to skilled astronomers and engineers. Rhodes was also the site of a renowned school of astronomy where advanced celestial calculations were taught. It's entirely possible the mechanism was built there before being shipped west. In recent years, high-resolution 3D scans have allowed researchers to reconstruct the mechanism in incredible detail. They've even built working replicas, proving beyond doubt that the ancient gears could perform complex astronomical calculations. But this only deepens the mystery. If such advanced technology existed, why didn't it lead to a broader technological revolution in the ancient world? Why didn't similar devices become common tools for navigation and astronomy? The outcome is both awe-inspiring and frustrating. We know what the Antikythera mechanism could do. We know it required immense skill to make. We know it represents a pinnacle of ancient Greek engineering. And yet, we don't know how widespread such knowledge was, who exactly made it, or why it disappeared. Today, the corroded fragments of the Antikythera mechanism sit in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, encased in glass. Visitors peer at it with the same wonder that researchers have felt for over a century. A reminder that history is full of moments where human brilliance shines brightly, and then vanishes, leaving us to wonder what else we've lost to time. From the depths of the sea and the heights of ancient engineering, our next mystery takes us back to solid ground, to a place where stones weighing hundreds of tons were somehow moved and placed with a precision we still can't fully explain. An ancient machine that works like a computer, built when Rome was still rising. If this is what's been hiding under the waves, just imagine what's waiting in the shadows of history. Like this video if your mind's already racing. And let's dive back in. In the Bekaa Valley of modern-day Lebanon lies a site that has puzzled archaeologists, historians, and engineers for decades. It's called Baalbek, a sprawling complex of ancient temples and ruins. But what draws the most attention isn't the ornate Roman columns or the intricate carvings, it's the stones. Some of the largest building blocks ever used by humans, weighing hundreds, even over 1,000 tons each. The origins of Baalbek stretch deep into history. By the Roman period, it was known as Heliopolis, the city of the sun, and it became a major center of worship. The Romans constructed grand temples here, the Temple of Jupiter, the Temple of Bacchus, and the Temple of Venus, each adorned with massive columns and elaborate reliefs. But beneath these Roman structures lies an even older foundation, built from megalithic stones so massive that their transportation and placement remain a mystery. The most famous of these are the trilithon, 3 stone blocks, each estimated to weigh around 800 tons, forming part of the platform beneath the Temple of Jupiter. These stones are cut with remarkable precision and fit so tightly together that even today, a knife blade can barely slide between them. Nearby, still lying in a quarry, is the so-called Stone of the Pregnant Woman, a single block weighing over 1,000 tons, one of the largest ever carved by human hands. In 2014, archaeologists discovered yet another block in the same quarry, even larger, estimated at around 1,650 tons. The question is obvious: how were these enormous stones moved? Conventional theories suggest that the Romans, known for their engineering prowess, used rollers, sledges, and manpower to transport them. But some researchers argue that moving stones of this size over uneven terrain would have required a level of technology or organization that surpasses what we usually attribute to the Romans, especially since similar megalithic building styles appear in other parts of the world, far removed in time and culture. One theory is that Baalbek's massive stone platform predates the Romans entirely, perhaps built by an earlier civilization whose identity is now lost to history. The Romans may have simply expanded upon what was already there, incorporating the colossal stones into their own temple complex. This idea is supported by differences in masonry style between the massive foundation blocks and the smaller, more uniform Roman stonework above them. From a scientific perspective, moving the trilithon would have required extraordinary effort. Modern engineers estimate that even with advanced cranes and heavy equipment, shifting such stones would be a significant challenge today. In the ancient world, it might have involved wooden rollers, sledges lubricated with animal fat, and teams of hundreds, if not thousands, of workers. But without direct evidence of such methods being used at Baalbek, the exact process remains speculative. Baalbek's significance extends beyond its engineering marvels. The site has been a place of worship for thousands of years, with layers of religious history built one atop another. Before the Romans, it may have been associated with local deities, or even linked to the Canaanite god Baal, from which the name Baalbek likely derives. Its placement in the fertile Bekaa Valley also suggests it was an important cultural and trading hub in antiquity. Legends have flourished around Baalbek. In medieval Islamic tradition, it was said that the site had been built by giants at the command of King Solomon, using supernatural forces to move the stones. Other stories tie the construction to the time of the Great Flood, implying that the stones have stood since a much earlier epoch than mainstream archaeology suggests. And, inevitably, some modern theorists have proposed extraterrestrial involvement, pointing to the sheer size of the blocks as evidence of advanced, perhaps non-human, technology. While these theories are more speculative than scientific, they point to one undeniable truth: Baalbek inspires awe. Standing before the trilithon, one is struck by the scale, the precision, and the sheer human determination it would have taken to create such a foundation. Whether it was the work of Romans pushing their engineering limits or the legacy of an even older civilization, the site represents a peak of ancient construction ability. In recent years, archaeological excavations have continued at Baalbek, revealing more about its Roman-era grandeur, but still leaving the origin of its megalithic foundation uncertain. No inscriptions or records have been found to definitively explain when or how the largest stones were moved into place. For now, the mystery remains, a puzzle carved in stone, challenging both our historical assumptions and our imagination. The outcome is a layered story. On one level, Baalbek is a Roman masterpiece, a testament to imperial ambition and architectural skill. On another, it is a riddle from a deeper past, a reminder that our ancestors, whether Roman engineers or unknown builders, accomplished feats we still struggle to fully explain. From the towering temples of Baalbek, our journey shifts to another ancient mystery, one not of stone but of metal, a relic that challenges our understanding of technology in the ancient world, and whose purpose is still not fully understood. In the heart of Delhi, India, within the grounds of the Qutb complex, stands a single column of metal that has defied time, weather, and even rust for over 1,600 years. It's called the Delhi Iron Pillar, and while at first glance it might seem like nothing more than a tall, ancient post, it's one of the most extraordinary examples of early metallurgy in the world. The pillar is over 7 meters tall, weighs more than 6 tons, and is made almost entirely of wrought iron. What makes it so remarkable is not just its size, but its condition. Despite being exposed to Delhi's humid summers, monsoon rains, and cool winters for centuries, the pillar shows virtually no signs of corrosion. Modern steel, left in similar conditions, would have rusted away long ago. Historians date the pillar to around the 4th or 5th century CE, during the reign of Chandragupta II of the Gupta Empire, a period often considered a golden age for art, science, and technology in India. An inscription in Sanskrit carved into the pillar praises the king's victories, and suggests the pillar may have originally been erected in the central Indian city of Udaigiri, before being moved to its current location centuries later. The pillar's composition has fascinated scientists for decades. It's made of an exceptionally pure form of iron, about 99.7% pure, produced in an era long before blast furnaces and modern refining techniques. Ancient Indian ironworkers used a process called forge welding, in which small pieces of iron were repeatedly heated, hammered, and fused together. The process was painstaking, but it produced a remarkably consistent and durable material. So why hasn't the pillar rusted? The answer lies in both the quality of the iron and a unique protective layer that formed on its surface. Over centuries, a thin film of crystalline iron hydrogen phosphate, called misawite, developed, sealing the metal from moisture and oxygen. Modern metallurgists have replicated this protective effect in the lab, but the fact that ancient craftsmen achieved it without modern chemistry remains astonishing. Moving the pillar to Delhi would have been no small feat. Transporting a 6-ton monolith in the ancient world would have required significant manpower, specialized equipment, and careful planning. We don't know exactly when or how it was relocated, but it likely involved rolling it on logs or transporting it via river routes before raising it at its present site. Beyond its technological marvel, the iron pillar carries cultural and symbolic meaning. It likely served as a victory monument, commemorating the power and achievements of the Gupta dynasty. Its endurance over the centuries has also given it a kind of mystical aura. Local legends claim the pillar is a talisman of good fortune, and that anyone who can encircle it with their arms while standing with their back to it will have their wish granted. Though this practice is now forbidden to preserve the monument, the Delhi iron pillar challenges some assumptions about the technological limits of the ancient world. It shows that early Indian metallurgists possessed an advanced understanding of smelting, purification, and large-scale casting. While they may not have known the exact chemical reactions taking place, their empirical knowledge and refined craftsmanship allowed them to create something that has outlasted centuries of exposure. The pillar has also inspired debate. Some fringe theories suggest the technology to create such pure iron must have come from an outside source, even linking it to lost civilizations or extraterrestrials. Mainstream archaeology, however, points to India's long tradition of ironworking, which stretches back to at least 1200 BCE, and the gradual refinement of techniques over many centuries. The outcome here is clear. The Delhi iron pillar is not an unsolved mystery in the same way as some other ancient wonders. We understand much of how it was made and why it has endured, but it remains a striking testament to human ingenuity, showing that advanced materials science is not just a product of the modern industrial age. Today, the pillar still stands tall, its surface smooth and gleaming in the sunlight. It's a silent reminder of a time when craftsmanship, patience, and skill could create something that would last not just for generations, but for millennia. From the unyielding strength of ancient metal, we now turn to a very different kind of endurance. A city lost for centuries beneath the jungle, hidden from the world until its rediscovery stunned archaeologists. Deep in the jungles of Cambodia lies the largest religious monument ever built, a sprawling complex of stone towers, vast reservoirs, and intricate carvings. Today, it's called Angkor Wat, and it stands as a masterpiece of architecture and devotion. But for centuries, the jungle kept it hidden from the outside world, its existence known only to locals, while the rest of the globe forgot it entirely. Angkor Wat was constructed in the early 12th century during the reign of King Suryavarman II of the Khmer Empire. Originally, it was a Hindu temple dedicated to the god Vishnu, built to represent Mount Meru, the mythical home of the gods in Hindu cosmology. Its design reflects this celestial symbolism: central towers rising above lower galleries, each layer representing the realms between the human world and the divine. The sheer scale is staggering. The temple complex covers over 160 hectares, more than twice the size of the Vatican City. Its moat alone stretches nearly 4 kilometers in length, surrounding the temple like a protective embrace. The walls are covered in bas-reliefs that stretch for hundreds of meters, depicting scenes from Hindu epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, as well as historical battles and royal processions. But Angkor Wat was just one jewel in the crown of Angkor, the capital city of the Khmer Empire. At its height, Angkor was home to hundreds of thousands of people, its skyline dominated by hundreds of temples, palaces, and administrative buildings. The empire's engineers constructed an elaborate system of canals and reservoirs, some of the most advanced hydraulic infrastructure in the pre-modern world, ensuring water supply for farming even during dry seasons. So how does a city of this magnitude simply vanish? The decline of Angkor was gradual and complex. Historians point to a combination of factors: prolonged droughts, flooding, political instability, and invasions from neighboring kingdoms like Ayutthaya. By the 15th century, the Khmer kings had shifted their capital south toward Phnom Penh, leaving Angkor's great temples to be reclaimed by the jungle. For centuries afterward, Angkor Wat remained in use as a Buddhist temple, even as the city around it faded away. The dense forests and shifting political landscapes kept it largely out of sight from the rest of the world, until the 19th century, when French explorer Henri Mouhot wrote about it in his travel journals. His descriptions of a rival to Solomon and a grander temple than any of Greece or Rome captured Europe's imagination, sparking a wave of archaeological interest. Modern technology has revealed even more of Angkor's secrets. Using LIDAR, laser scanning from aircraft, researchers have discovered entire neighborhoods, hidden temples, and forgotten roads beneath the forest canopy. The scans suggest that Angkor was even larger and more urbanized than previously thought, possibly the largest city in the world during its peak in the 13th century. From a scientific perspective, Angkor's rise and fall offers valuable lessons. Its advanced water management system sustained the city for centuries, but it was vulnerable to climate change. When drought struck, followed by severe flooding, the finely tuned network of canals and reservoirs could no longer cope. This environmental stress, combined with political fragmentation, may have sealed Angkor's fate. Today, Angkor Wat is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a source of national pride for Cambodia. Its silhouette even graces the country's flag. Millions of visitors walk its causeways each year, climbing its towers and tracing the carvings that have survived for 900 years. Conservation efforts work constantly to preserve its delicate sandstone walls against erosion, vegetation, and the sheer weight of tourism. The outcome is one of awe and perspective. Angkor Wat is both a reminder of humanity's capacity to create wonders and a cautionary tale of how even the greatest cities can fall. It shows us the impermanence of power and the enduring beauty of art and devotion. Standing before Angkor Wat at sunrise, with the towers reflected in the still waters of its moat, it's easy to imagine the city alive. Again, the air filled with the chants of priests, the clatter of markets, the steady rhythm of life in the heart of the Khmer Empire. From a city swallowed by the jungle, our journey now moves to another ancient wonder. Not a city, but a single structure. A monument that has stood against the winds of the desert for thousands of years, its purpose still debated by historians. A city swallowed by the jungle, lost for centuries. And we're still only scratching the surface. What we're about to explore next will challenge everything you thought you knew about the ancient world. Subscribe now so you're with us for every revelation. On the edge of the Giza Plateau, where the desert meets the Nile Valley, stands one of the most iconic monuments in the world. A colossal stone guardian with the body of a lion and the head of a human. The Great Sphinx has been watching over the pyramids for thousands of years, its gaze fixed eternally toward the rising sun. It is at once a masterpiece of ancient engineering and an enigma wrapped in centuries of debate. The Sphinx is carved directly from the limestone bedrock of the plateau. It stretches 73 meters in length, stands 20 meters tall, and is believed to be the largest monolithic statue in the world. Its sheer size and craftsmanship make it a marvel, but it's the mysteries surrounding its origin, purpose, and even its face that have kept scholars and visitors captivated for centuries. Mainstream Egyptologists generally date the Sphinx to around 2500 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, who also built the second largest pyramid at Giza. This theory is supported by the alignment of the Sphinx with Khafre's pyramid complex and the discovery of a nearby temple that seems to be part of the same architectural plan. Some even believe the face of the Sphinx was originally meant to represent Khafre himself, though erosion and later restorations have altered its features over the millennia. Yet, not everyone agrees. Some researchers argue that the weathering patterns on the Sphinx, especially the vertical erosion marks on its body, suggest it may be far older than Khafre's time, possibly dating back to a period of heavy rainfall thousands of years earlier. If true, this would push its origins deep into pre-dynastic history, long before the construction of the pyramids, raising questions about who could have built it and why. There's also the matter of the missing nose. Popular myth blames Napoleon's troops for blasting it off with cannon fire, but sketches of the Sphinx without a nose exist from long before Napoleon's arrival in Egypt. It's more likely the nose was deliberately chiseled away in the medieval period, perhaps as part of religious iconoclasm. The Sphinx's purpose remains a matter of debate. Was it a guardian of the pyramid complex, a symbol of divine kingship, or a celestial marker aligned with the rising sun at specific times of the year? Its eastward gaze certainly suggests a solar connection, and the ancient Egyptians often linked lions with the horizon and rebirth. Some researchers have even suggested the Sphinx served as part of an astronomical observatory, marking key points in the solar calendar. In front of the Sphinx lies the so-called Dream Stele, erected by Pharaoh Thutmose IV around 1400 BCE. According to its inscription, Thutmose fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx, and dreamed that the great statue promised him kingship if he cleared away the sands that had buried it up to its neck. This story not only speaks to the Sphinx's role as a symbol of divine favor, but also hints at how much of its history has been shaped by cycles of burial and rediscovery. Over the centuries, the Sphinx has been both revered and neglected. At times, it was buried almost entirely by drifting desert sands, only to be excavated again by rulers who saw it as a link to Egypt's glorious past. Modern excavations and restorations have revealed much about its structure, but also sparked controversy, as some repairs in the 20th century caused further damage to the ancient stone. From a geological and engineering standpoint, carving the Sphinx directly from bedrock was a brilliant decision. It eliminated the need to move massive stone blocks, though it required careful planning to work around natural layers and faults in the limestone. The blocks cut from the Sphinx's trench were repurposed to build nearby temples, further connecting the statue to the broader Giza complex. The outcome is both clear and elusive. We know the Sphinx is one of the most impressive monuments of the ancient world, a testament to the artistry and ambition of its builders. But we don't know with absolute certainty who conceived it, when exactly it was carved, or all the meanings it carried. Its weathered face, human yet leonine, still looks out over the plateau, as if daring us to unravel the secrets of Egypt's deep past. Standing in its shadow, it's easy to feel the weight of time, not just the thousands of years the Sphinx has endured, but the centuries of human wonder it has inspired. From the silent guardian of Giza, our journey next takes us across the ocean to a windswept island in the Pacific, where giant stone figures stand watch over the sea. In the remote reaches of the Pacific Ocean, more than 3,500 kilometers from the nearest mainland, lies a small triangular island known as Rapa Nui, or as most of the world knows it, Easter Island. It is one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth, and yet, on its grassy slopes stand nearly 900 colossal stone statues, each one silent, solemn, and facing inland as if guarding something unseen. These are the Moai, the enduring symbols of one of history's most fascinating and mysterious cultures. The Moai range in size from just a few meters to towering giants over 10 meters tall, weighing as much as 80 tons. Carved from volcanic tuff, a soft rock found in the Rano Raraku quarry, the statues feature elongated heads, deep-set eyes, and prominent noses. Many once wore cylindrical stone hats called pukao, made from a different, red volcanic stone. The craftsmanship is remarkable. Each Moai is distinct, with subtle variations in facial features, suggesting they may have represented specific ancestors or chiefs. The Rapa Nui people began building the Moai around the 13th century, though some estimates suggest earlier dates. Each statue was carved directly from the quarry walls, then carefully transported, often several kilometers, to stone platforms called ahu along the island's coastline. How these massive figures were moved remains one of the island's great mysteries. Some researchers believe the statues were rolled on wooden sledges or logs, which would have required a significant amount of timber, something that may have contributed to the island's eventual deforestation. Others propose that the statues were walked upright, using a coordinated rocking motion with ropes, much like moving a refrigerator. In 2012, experimental archaeologists successfully demonstrated this method with a replica Moai, showing that a small team could indeed walk it forward. The purpose of the Moai seems tied to ancestor worship. The Rapa Nui believed their ancestors' spirits could watch over the living and bring prosperity. By placing the statues on ahu and orienting them inland, the Moai were seen as protectors of the communities behind them. Interestingly, only a few Moai face the sea, likely as guardians for travelers. But the history of Easter Island took a tragic turn. By the 17th century, the society that had built the Moai began to unravel. Environmental stress from deforestation, overuse of resources, and soil erosion may have led to food shortages. Conflict between clans escalated, and many Moai were toppled during these struggles, their faces buried in the earth. European contact in the 18th century brought even more hardship. Diseases, slave raids, and cultural disruption devastated the Rapa Nui population. By the late 19th century, the island's population had dwindled to just over 100 people. The Moai, once symbols of unity and strength, stood silent and abandoned. Yet the story did not end there. In the 20th century, restoration projects began, with archaeologists re-erecting some of the toppled Moai and working to preserve the ahu platforms. The Rapa Nui people, whose numbers have grown again, continue to maintain their cultural traditions, ensuring that the Moai remain not just relics, but living symbols of identity. From a scientific perspective, Easter Island is a case study in the balance between human ambition and environmental sustainability. It also serves as a reminder that even the most isolated societies are connected to broader global forces, both in their rise and in their challenges. The outcome of the Moai mystery is partially solved. We know how they were carved, we have strong theories about how they were moved, and we understand their role in Rapa Nui culture. But questions remain. Why did construction cease so abruptly? Was it purely environmental collapse, or were outside forces more decisive? And what can we learn from this small island that might apply to our own, much larger, interconnected world? Standing among the Moai at sunset, with the Pacific wind sweeping across the slopes, one can't help but feel the weight of centuries in their silent gaze. They are more than stone, they are memory, resilience, and a reminder of the fragile thread between people and their environment. From this lonely island in the Pacific, our journey's final stop takes us to the frozen north, to a shipwreck locked in ice, whose fate baffled the world for more than a century. In the summer of 1845, two British ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, set sail from England under the command of Sir John Franklin. Their mission was to chart and navigate the final, untraversed section of the Northwest Passage, a sea route through the Arctic that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It was one of the most ambitious expeditions of the age, and Franklin's crew of 129 men were equipped with the best that Victorian technology could offer. The Erebus and Terror were not ordinary ships. Both were former bomb vessels, sturdy, and reinforced for polar ice, refitted with steam engines for auxiliary power. They carried 3 years' worth of provisions, including tinned food, a relatively new innovation, as well as coal, warm clothing, and instruments for mapping and scientific study. Confidence in the mission was high. The Admiralty believed the Northwest Passage was within their grasp, but the Arctic is an unforgiving place. When the expedition sailed into Lancaster Sound, it was the last time any Europeans saw them alive. For years, no one knew what had become of Franklin and his men. The ships had vanished into the ice, leaving behind only silence. The search began in earnest after 2 years without word. Britain, the United States, and even private expeditions fanned out across the Arctic in what became one of the largest search efforts in history. They found tantalizing clues, abandoned camps, scattered supplies, and Inuit accounts of white men starving and dying in the snow. The breakthrough came in 1854 when explorer John Ray, working for the Hudson's Bay Company, heard stories from the Inuit of men from the expedition dying of starvation, and even accounts of cannibalism among the survivors. When Ray brought this news back to England, it shocked the nation. The Victorian public, unwilling to believe that British officers could resort to such acts, reacted with outrage. Even Charles Dickens publicly accused Ray of slandering Franklin's men. In 1859, another search party found a message left in a cairn on King William Island. It confirmed the worst fears. The Erebus and Terror had been trapped in ice since September 1846, and Franklin had died in June 1847. By April 1848, the remaining 105 men had abandoned the ships and begun a desperate march south in search of safety. None of them made it. For more than 150 years, the fate of the ships themselves remained a mystery. The Arctic ice and shifting conditions kept their resting places hidden, fueling endless speculation. Were they crushed by ice and sunk immediately? Did survivors attempt to sail them again before abandoning them for good? Meanwhile, human remains began to surface in the 1980s and 92nd. Exhumations of 3 remarkably well-preserved crewmen buried on Beechey Island revealed shocking details. Analysis suggested that lead poisoning, possibly from poorly soldered tin cans or from the ship's water systems, had weakened the crew. Malnutrition, scurvy, and harsh conditions compounded their suffering. Then, in 2014, the mystery took a dramatic turn. Using a combination of Inuit oral history and high-tech sonar surveys, a Canadian search team located the wreck of HMS Erebus in the waters off King William Island. 2 years later, HMS Terror was found, astonishingly well-preserved in a bay some distance away. The condition of Terror was so pristine that windows were intact and dinner plates still sat on shelves, as if the crew had just left. The discoveries confirmed some theories and challenged others. It became clear that the ships had not sunk immediately after being trapped in ice. At some point, they had been recrewed and sailed south, possibly in an attempt to escape the ice's grip. But why they were ultimately abandoned remains unclear. Artifacts recovered from the wrecks have offered haunting glimpses into the final days of the expedition. Boots, navigational tools, personal letters, and even a camera tripod. These intimate objects remind us that behind the grandeur of imperial exploration were men, fathers, sons, friends, fighting for survival in an alien frozen world. From a scientific standpoint, the Franklin expedition has been a case study in how multiple small failures, environmental, technological, and logistical, can combine into catastrophe. The lead poisoning theory remains debated, with some scientists suggesting it played a lesser role than once thought. More recent evidence points to zinc deficiency, scurvy, and sheer exhaustion as major factors. Whatever the exact causes, the result was the same: a slow, tragic march into oblivion. The outcome of the Franklin expedition mystery is both resolved and unresolved. We now know where the ships lie, how far the men traveled, and roughly when they perished. But the finer details, the exact sequence of events, the decisions made in those desperate final months, may remain forever locked in the Arctic ice. Today, the wrecks are protected heritage sites, co-managed by Parks Canada and the Inuit. Ongoing dives continue to recover artifacts, and each summer brings the possibility of new discoveries. The Inuit oral histories that helped locate the ships have been validated and honored, a reminder that indigenous knowledge can be as vital as any scientific instrument. Standing on the deck of a modern icebreaker, looking out at the same treacherous waters, it's easy to imagine the Erebus and Terror drifting silently under gray skies, sails furled, as the ice closed in around them. The Franklin expedition is a story of ambition, endurance, and the humbling power of nature, a final chapter in the age of heroic exploration, written in frost and silence. From sunken ships to silent stone guardians, the world is still full of unanswered questions. If you've enjoyed this journey, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and join us next time as we venture even deeper into the unknown. Until then, keep searching, keep questioning, and never stop wondering.